All right, I have here my measuring cup of unknown trustiness, and I'm going to show you real quick why serious bakers don't use them. So for this experiment, I'm going to use the measuring cup to measure flour a couple different ways, and we'll use the scale to see what actually happens. Okay, so first experiment, I'm just going to take a nice scoop of flour. Pretty reasonable, right? And we'll level that off. That look about right? Look like a fair cup of flour? Well, let's see. Scales on, scales tared. Okay, got 154 grams of flour. Is that good? Is that bad? Do you know what a cup is supposed to be? Supposedly, a cup of flour, according to this and a lot of online sources, a cup of flour is supposed to be 120 grams. So 154 grams, that's 35 grams over. That's like 30% more flour. But some of you may know that's not how you're supposed to measure flour with a cup. So let's do it the proper way. Proper way. Okay, so scales tared again, back to zero. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just using a whisk to kind of fluff this flour up a bit, because the reason it was so much over is because flour kind of packs down a little bit and you end up measuring more than you're supposed to. Okay, I've got this all fluffed up. And then here's what you're supposed to do. Just kind of gently sift it in there. Woo! Anyone got the time? About halfway there. Yeah. I mean, this is awkward just showing you. I can't imagine doing this 3 times to make a batch of cookies. Okay. So I have plenty of flour in there. I'm going to go ahead and level it off again. So now we've got our nice, loosely packed flour the way it's supposed to be measured. We're shooting for 120 grams. Let's see what happens. Scales tared again, back to zero. And, ooh, that's rough. Got 112 grams of flour. 112.8. But, so, as you can see, a couple of issues there. Maybe I sifted just a little too much, you know? But good luck getting that right. So, just for funsies, let's, now that my flour is sifted again, let's, it's all loose and fluffed up. I'll just scoop up a cup. Level that off. This time we're at 132.7, 0.6. Okay, so that's a lot closer, but even that is 10% more flour than it's supposed to be. And then the first measurement, when it was packed, if you just come to a bag of flour and scoop out a cup, that's what's going to happen. Almost 30% more flour. That's like you make a batch of, you make a batch of cookies. Recipe calls for 3 cups of flour, and you put in 4. Like that's it's going to make a difference. Obviously, having a lot more flour, it's going to dilute some of the flavors. It's going to reduce the relative moisture content of your recipe, and so especially the outsides or the tops, whatever you're baking, they're going to dry out faster. And before the entire thing is done cooking, it's going to affect the way proteins form and bind, and so it's going to have a big impact on the overall texture and flavor of your end product. So if you're serious about baking and you want to know what you're actually putting in your cookie recipe, that's why we just go straight to the scale. So you remember how long it took me to sift that flour? It was still wrong. So here's how I actually measure flour in my baking. And pay close attention and count the number of dishes I use. Scales on and tared. There we go, 120.1. So, fraction of a percent off. But I'll take it, 120.1. Yeah, it's a lot easier. You know, if you really want to, I think a lot of people, they might try a recipe online that says 3 cups of flour or whatever, and they measure different. Even the altitude that you measure your flour at makes a difference. And then they say, oh, this is a terrible recipe, I don't really like it. Or recipes that you are used to making 100 times, maybe sometimes they don't come out right all the time. If you want your recipes to be reliable and consistent, and you want to know what you're actually doing, if you want to be a little more scientific about your baking, the food scale is the way to go. And you could buy all the measuring cups in the world, or you could just buy this food scale for $10. It works for liquids too, because liquids don't pack down, right? They keep their density pretty well. It's not as important for things like those, so I'll still use things like teaspoons for measuring vanilla or whatever, but food scale is the way to go. Flour, powdered sugar, even baking soda and baking powder and things like that. I prefer to measure in grams. But anyway, hope this was helpful. I plan on sharing a lot more baking tips with you. If there's anything you'd like to know about, ask me a question. I'll answer you, at least in the comments, maybe in a video. But anyway, thank you and take care.